this is connecting of the dots that I've been trying to put together, where we have the BIS behind the project mBridge, along with China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and United Arab Emirates, in a system that is not compatible with US dollars. We have Saudi Arabia, the largest producer of oil in the world, who is now signed on as a full participant to project mBridge. We have Delma Rousseff, the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, who says, in principle, we've agreed upon a new settlement currency, if you will, called the unit. Now, I talked forever about de-dollarization and about the BRICS and Saudi Arabia and all of these things coming together. What we are now seeing are these pieces being put together. And I don't think the all-at-once moment is upon us, but certainly the little by little is getting faster.
For over 3 years, the Bank of International Settlements, BIS, has collaborated with China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates on a groundbreaking project called mBridge. This initiative aims to revolutionize global financial transactions by enhancing efficiency, speed, and transparency through a new cross-border central bank digital currency, CBDC. Slow processing times, high costs, and complex procedures have long plagued traditional correspondent banking. In response, mBridge introduces the mBridge Ledger, MBL, a sophisticated distributed ledger technology, DLT. This technology facilitates instant peer-to-peer and atomic cross-border payments and foreign exchange transactions using wholesale CBDCs, directly addressing these challenges. Recently, mBridge reached a significant milestone by successfully completing its minimal viable product, MVP phase. Notably, Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer, has committed to participating fully in this project, which operates independently from the US dollar. What makes Project mBridge and its associated unit currency particularly intriguing is their potential to reshape global financial dynamics. Andy Schectman highlights that unlike conventional currencies tethered to specific national economies, the unit currency proposes a revolutionary framework where each participating nation's gold reserves are securely held within their respective borders and subject to rigorous auditing protocols. This concept represents a paradigm shift away from the prevailing international monetary system, which predominantly relies on the supremacy of the US dollar. Recent trends in gold accumulation further underscore the momentum behind Project mBridge and the unit currency. Significant gold acquisitions by prominent entities such as the Bank of India and repatriations by countries including Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and several African nations highlight a growing global trend towards diversifying away from U.S. Treasury instruments and exploring alternative financial infrastructures. Andy suggests that by offering a platform for trading based on locally held, gold-backed reserves, this initiative presents a compelling alternative to the predominant role of the US dollar in international finance. We will present clips from Andy Schectman's interview. But before we do, if you want more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell for more updates. Thank you and enjoy the video.
The debt jumped from January 2nd of this year to July 2nd from 33.9 trillion to 34.86 trillion. The debt is accelerating at levels that the world has never seen before. These are things that we could talk about, and I do, and I think they're important. And if we were sitting at our computers, I would focus on that. I think the thing that really has me intrigued and has me focused is the Project mBridge and the unit currency, which we talked about last week on the show. To me, this is connecting of the dots that I've been trying to put together for a very, very long time, where we have the BIS behind the Project mBridge, along with China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and United Arab Emirates, in a system that is not compatible with US dollars. We have Saudi Arabia, the largest producer of oil in the world, who is now signed on as a full participant to Project mBridge in a system that is not compatible with US dollars. We have Delma Rousseff, the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, who says, in principle, we've agreed upon a new settlement currency, if you will, called the unit. All of these things I talked about on your show last week, but to me, it is the most important thing, because what it really does is I think it lights the fuse to the dollar, to the reality that countries will have far less incentive to hold treasuries. Aside from the weaponization, we now know that gold will be very pivotal in this new unit. And if you read the white paper on the unit, it says the gold that each nation uses for the unit tokens will be held within their own borders and audited, of course, but held within their own borders, pulled out of circulation, put into an escrow account within their own borders. And when we see not only the massive accumulation done again that we've been seeing, but like you said, the Bank of India purchasing 1.5 times what they did last year in the first 4 months, but bringing it home along with the 100 metric tons they've had since 1991. And it puts more into context about Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the half a dozen African countries that repatriated their gold from the New York Fed just last month or the month before. These two locations, the New York Fed and the Bank of England, would give immediate access to the COMEX and the LBMA, respectively. And so when we see these things happening, I talked forever about de-dollarization and about the BRICS and Saudi Arabia and all of these things coming together. What we are now seeing are these pieces being put together. And I don't think the all-at-once moment is upon us, but certainly the little by little is getting faster. And I think people need to understand, and I would strongly suggest researching the Project mBridge and researching and reading the white paper for the unit, because to me, it really exemplifies and puts together what is important. And that is something that I continue to beat over people's head, because to me, nothing else is as relevant as and as important as finding a new system, which seems to be being thrust upon us here. Like it or not, I think it's happening. Those central banks who brought their gold back following the Bundesbank's lead in 2017 and went on a massive buying spree for 2 years before, then the BIS said, by the way, we reclassified gold tier 1. You don't think they knew about it? Of course they did. Just like they're all being told to buy gold and bring it home now, because the new BIS system is Project mBridge. And the unit, which is traded on mBridge, allows for the gold, which will be the major backing component, to be held within their own borders. If you don't see that as being wholly relevant and as a substitute for the U.S. Treasury and as a substitute for the U.S. dollar, certainly the beginning seed anyway, to see how fast it manifests and how fast it grows. And I guess that remains to be seen. But to ignore what it really truly is.
mBridge is designed to revolutionize cross-border transactions by leveraging local and central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. A significant challenge in international finance is the fragmentation caused by differing currencies among nations. However, Andy asserts that mBridge introduces a solution that preserves each country's monetary autonomy. It allows nations to maintain their monetary policies and trade their currencies within their borders. This innovative platform bypasses traditional systems like SWIFT, facilitating transactions through a unified currency pegged to 40% gold and 60% local BRICS currencies. Why does this innovation matter? It threatens to impact the US dollar's dominance as a global reserve currency. Over the past quarter century, the bond market has underperformed by a staggering 100% compared to gold. This discrepancy implies that a 10-year Treasury bond has yielded only half the returns of gold during the same period, albeit without the counterparty risks associated with traditional financial intermediaries. This development poses a significant challenge to the dollar's hegemony in global financial markets. By facilitating transactions outside the US dollar, mBridge has the potential to significantly impact the dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency. This shift is underscored by the performance disparity between the bond market and gold over the past 25 years, where gold has outperformed bonds by 100%. Andy suggests that a 10-year Treasury bond has yielded only half the returns of gold during the same period, without the associated risks of counterparty involvement.
It's important to mention that mBridge supports cross-border payment of local currencies, of central bank digital currencies. And part of this infrastructure people push back on is the bond market and the fact that these countries don't have enough unity with one another to have a common currency. But that's been addressed in the architecture here, where each country will have their own monetary autonomy, their own monetary policy, trading their own currencies within their own economies across the mBridge, which sidestepped the SWIFT, and then settling in a common token, if you will, a common currency unit that will be pegged to gold 40% and a basket of 60% local currencies of the BRICS nations. So the transactions being done outside the dollar will massively impact the value of the dollar and its role in reserves. And when you realize that the bond market has paled in comparison to gold over the past 25 years by a factor of 100%. In other words, 10-year Treasury has done half as good as gold has for the past 25 years, but with no counterparty risk. It's a huge, huge blow to the reserve status of the dollar. So transactions, reserve, and image of the dollar are all being massively compromised, and you can see the pieces are coming together much more swiftly. 59 countries came out of the last meeting in Novigrad 2 weeks ago and said, we're applying to BRICS. You add that to the 10, you're talking 69 countries and a massive, that's 3 times the size of the European Union just in countries alone. And when you realize that unlike the European Union, every one of these countries will have their own currency, but a common settlement currency, it is the composition of the settlement currency that destroys both the transaction and the settlement value of the dollar in the treasury market. What it does is it greatly starts to reduce demand for both. And as there is less demand and more supply, we would see inflation and interest rates go higher, which ultimately, little by little, starts to wreak havoc upon the system. Now, if it gets to a point where people realize that this is a global realization, that this is a trend in motion, and all of a sudden what starts out slow and orderly turns into a stampede through a rotating door, not everyone makes it through alive. And it becomes a very, very unorderly chaos type of situation that could immediately overwhelm the United States with massive inflation. And we've talked about that forever, what that looks like as interest rates go parabolic. And in the face of rising interest rates, you have banks that are undercapitalized and overleveraged, insurance companies that are loaded with treasuries, and stocks and bonds and real estate that are all inversely correlated to that moment. And this is why I keep coming back to the fact that all of the actions that we've taken, both at home and abroad, are just too foolish to not be planned. And what does it look like? I think it's a frightening thing when you realize that inflation is going to continue and probably much worse. And you take everything out of the equation and just say we have, 150 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Who's going to pay for that? How? Let alone the massive immigration problem that isn't calculated by the Congressional Budget Office, who said that in less than 6 years, every penny that we take in income tax receipts goes just to pay mandatory entitlements and the interest on the debt. Remember, military spending is discretional. Who pays for that? How do we maintain our supremacy around the world when we have to borrow money to fund our military and borrow money to keep the lights on? Borrow money just to pay what we've already borrowed. It's a bad situation getting worse. So I don't know when that all at once moment happens. Then again, I think in a world of probabilities, it happens quicker than most people would ever think possible. And it happens in a way that catches most people completely off guard. I always say you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming.
If Project mBridge were to supplant the US dollar as a dominant international currency, it would signify a monumental transformation in global finance. By introducing a unit currency backed by gold reserves from participating nations and leveraging advanced distributed ledger technology, mBridge could reduce the dollar's prominence. Share your thoughts on Andy's prediction in the comment section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Until next time.